Welcome, fight fans, to the second ever episode of Hooks In MMA podcast. Hope you joined in for the first one last week. It was a banger. We got a big one coming up this week, though, so I hope you got your popcorn ready. With the first off news, we're going to be looking back at that UFC on ESPN with Blaydes versus Volkov. Couple different interesting fights to analyze, so we're going to be breaking that down. Then we're going to be heading into our guest interviews. First, we have Tanner, the Bulldozer Boser, that's going to be fighting this Saturday night in Vegas on the UFC Poirier versus Dan Hooker. Tune in for that one. He's a Canadian homeboy heavyweight, and he's going to be crushing some skulls. Next, we're going to be heading into an interview with the Chief Operating Officer of the BTC, Shari Carruthers. And finally, on this episode, our easy lines, getting ahead of that book. Looking forward to that Poirier Dan Hooker main card. Let's get it going with our boy, Ben Zeman. Handing it off to Adam Davidson. Let's kick off this hot headline news.
Thanks, Ron. The first fight, we had Blaydes win over Volkov, a bit of a lackluster performance. What do you guys think of the fight?
Yeah, I think jumping in there, it was really interesting to hear Dana White's comments after the fight saying things like, Blaydes talked a lot of crap during this week and he came out with that type of performance and wasn't really impressed. But in my opinion, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He said he was going to go in there and ragdoll him, and that's what he did. He said to everyone, hey, don't get ready for a knockout punch or whatever. He went in there, ragdolled him, threw him around. It wasn't the most impressive of performances. I was actually pretty impressed with some of Volkov's grappling and some of his defense down there. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I thought about it right off the beginning.
Yeah, I was impressed actually with his heart, Blaydes' heart, because he was gassed. He could barely get off his stool after the third round. He still fought 2 rounds. He won the 4th still. Lost the 5th, but he still survived. He was gassed. That's a pretty big statement just to work through that.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add there, Blaydes was, strategic. He fought his fight and ended up getting a decision. But I was actually, if we can give a little credit to Volkov here, I know it was a 5-round fight because it was the main fight, not a title fight, but it was a main fight on the card. If it happened to be 7 or 8 rounds, which is unrealistic to say, but I'm just trying to give Volkov a bit of a shout out. I think Volkov wins. His cardio after getting taken down so many times in that fight, getting roughed up and just that weight on him for the 5 rounds was, I thought, pretty impressive. He was bouncing back up. Even though he didn't win the fight, he got up better. The takedown defense was better than I'd seen in the past from him. And I think he deserved that fight. I think there was a reason why that was a main event and why he got an opportunity to fight against a guy that's only lost to Ngannou twice. So I'll give Volkov a little bit of a credit. And, he's still going to get a big fight coming up. He could potentially maybe fight like the winner of Lewis and Oleinik, or there could be another couple of solid matchups for him. So I was still impressed with Volkov, even though Blaydes, we expected him to win, and so did Vegas.
Totally. So moving on to the, co-main event, Burgos Emmett. There's talks here that this could be fight of the year candidate so far. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. What are you thinking?
Straight up barn burner. Crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's almost kind of why the Blaydes and Volkov fight wasn't as looked upon as good. It's because, UFC has this thing where they always want to, the heavier the weight, the higher they are in the card, right? When really every MMA hardcore fan knew the real fight of the night was going to be Burgos versus Emmett. Even going into that card, we all knew that. And it did not disappoint at all, right? It was complete barn burner, as said. Emmett put on an absolutely astonishing performance, blowing out his knee, his ACL in that first round, but still being able to, land so many significant shots as he did. And imagine if he was able to put all his pressure and all his weight down on that leg in the 2nd and 3rd round. Shane Burgos, even though he has that iron chin of his, I'm not sure he would have been able to survive that, perhaps. And as I already stated, Ricardo Lamas probably would have been knocked out 10 times before he hit the ground. if he had been fighting Emmett that night. So it was a very impressive performance, I thought.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, I've stated before, I'm a huge Burgos fan. I still, even though he lost that fight, I still am very, very high in his future. You know, the guy must walk around at 180 pounds. He's got a triangle of a back. You could tell the size difference between him and Emmett. He did take a lot of shots. Maybe they weren't 100% because of Emmett's knee, but he took them. But the one thing that I took away from that fight is those shots that he'd take to the face, especially the two in the in the third round when he got knocked down. You know, in a fight when you're fighting somebody and you're watching it and you can see when you hurt that guy, the other guy actually acknowledges it. That means that it hurt, right? You're showing them actually that it hurt by saying it didn't hurt. You're kind of playing that game. You're smiling at them. So Burgos, those two knockdowns, he got knocked down with those punches and was sticking out his tongue and laughing like he was on the ground. To me, those did hurt him. I just wonder, like Z said, if he had full 100% on his knee, if he would have been able to even smile back, he might have been put out. Still very high on Burgos. It's unfortunate for Emmett that he's got to probably sit out a year now, take another setback, be another year older. He's right in the thick of things now. He's right in, he can fight somebody in the top 5, but now he's got to wait a year. He's going to be 36. Who knows how he's going to recover? I would assume pretty well because he's in shape. I hope he recovers well, but it's unfortunate the timing in his career. I hope he can bounce back. He's proven nothing else. Burgos, huge fan, still up a lot of upside in his career. Can't wait for his next bout.
Yeah. So with the
go ahead,
first 2 fights being covered, though, I know there's actually 2 big wins by Canadians on this card, and I just, want to highlight those because we have to head into our next content. So if you guys want to cover the quick recap of those 2 Canadian wins.
Jillian Roberts setting the record for most submission wins by female in the UFC. That's a pretty big deal. She looked fantastic. She was like a blanket in there. It's crazy.
Yeah, 7 of 8 wins by finish. I hate to even stereotype women's MMA. I actually sometimes almost prefer some of the women's fights. They're more exciting, I find. But some of them say, some critics say, the power
and Joanna and Wayne J. Lee.
Oh, yeah. one of the best fights.
That is the real fight of the year right now. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? Just a war.
My point being, like, critics will say, there's not as many knockouts, there's not as much power in the women's division. I don't care about that. I don't agree. Jillian Robertson, 7 of her 8 wins are by finish, so they can shut the door on that one.
Yeah, no, I agree. And with the women's, kind of knockout power there, it's a young sport, and women are it's new for men, but it's even more newer for women, right? And so I think they're just starting to kind of scratch the surface there. Of course, they are lower weight classes, but they're still at 135. Men at 135 are knocking each other out like crazy. So, and then, Amanda Nunes, Valentina, they're KOing people. So, it's definitely growing. The respect is growing there, and really happy to see our Canadian-born Jillian, like you said, break that record and get a win.
Yeah, and just to add one last thing, if you guys want to add on, that's cool too. Just with Marc-Andre Barrio, him and Oscar Piota, both 0-3 in their last 3 fights each. That fight didn't disappoint. They were looking for the knockout. They were coming forward. Barrio finally came out of his shell. He was talking about that. I'm going to be coming out like a beast in this fight, and he needed to. Otherwise, like I was saying, both of them or maybe one of them were going to get cut. Great knockout. He looked fantastic, the best he's looked in his career, and I hope he can build on that moving forward.
What do you guys think of the big controversy of the night of the corner stoppage or the no stoppage? Rossoff mentioning 9 times that didn't want to fight anymore. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump on there first. I think at the end of the day, it was, a lot of the, managements. I mean, everyone's at fault here. Right? You can't just put it on one particular person, but certainly there was a lot of factors at play. Number one, this is a 5-day notice fight, and it's very tough to prepare, certainly even in these conditions, right, with the pandemic and everything else. So I think that was just a major factor at play, that was a mistake. you know, it's easy to say that now, hindsight's 2020. This kid was coming up 5-0. He was submitting everyone in the first round, looked like a stud, going against a guy that, you know, isn't necessarily obviously, you know, top of the cream or whatever UFC, but he's an experienced guy. And we all know, you know, fighting the guy in the UFC is a little different than fighting the guy in Titan FC or something, you know, all respect to them, but it's just, there's levels to this game, right? So I think that was a little bit of a misstep by management, by his management there. And in terms of the actual, you know, corner, you know, I can't say, I've never been in a fight, like a professional fight like that. So I can't necessarily say, you know, this or that. But what I can say is if a guy is telling me 9 times, like he's that adamant, call it, you know, you kind of have to, no matter what. Like, it's just, like the guy you make him do it himself. He had to walk up to the friggin' commissioner and do it himself. And he was so embarrassed. He's whispering. It's just a bad thing. And
it's like, it's like the opposite of Anthony Smith. Like, he was getting his face crumbled and, you know,
teeth flying everywhere.
He wasn't saying a word.
Well, he said that's another. Yeah, he said his teeth has fallen out, but he had a deal. He had a deal with his, like a verbal deal where he told his corner, "You ever stop the fight?" He's going on a shield. Yeah. Whereas Max doesn't have that deal. Like, he hasn't talked about that, and I get it. You know, they were, you know, it was a bit of a cardio thing. Well, you know, just a bit of he was tired. He was tired as fuck, and he was getting beat up for 2 rounds. And there isn't a whole lot of point. I mean, like I said, it's easy to say. It's you know, you go in and finish the fight. That's the right thing to do. But if you're not going to win, you're not going to win. Yeah. This kid has a whole thing ahead of him, and he didn't want to continue because he was tired as fuck, and he was going to get TKO probably in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
he knew that.
He was on Anthony Smith's podcast today, and he was talking about it, and he was saying he doesn't regret quitting on the stool. He said he was saying it's better for the longevity of his career, and he was pretty sure that he wasn't coming back. He was too tired. He was hurt. But he says he does regret how it made his corner look and his management. He's like, you can't put it on the manager, because if you're offered a UFC fight on 5 days notice and you're fighting in a low organization and you're 5-0 or whatever, you're going to jump at the chance, whether it's 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 hours, you're going to jump at that. And the other part is, if it was a normal live event, you wouldn't have heard any of that. And like, I think his corner's being thrown under the bus a little bit. They're like, it's their job to try to motivate the fighter, and they were just trying to convince him, like, just go out there, do something, try to jump on his back, do something.
Yeah, I have a variety of factors that kind of that I wanted to discuss. Number one, so he was 5-0. I don't believe he's ever been out of the first round. So he's already getting in that 2nd round on 5 days notice. And, you know, he's in waters he's never been in before. Secondly, his coach, Robert Drysdale, I was thinking he has a minute to talk to him, but he doesn't. It takes 5 seconds to come over and sit down on the stool. He told him as soon as he sat down, I'm done. So that coach literally has 5 seconds to materialize what he's saying, and then think, what the fuck am I going to do now? Like, and then he's got to think about a few things. So then usually they blow the whistle with 50 seconds left, so that they got 10 seconds to get back out and fight. So really he's got like 40 seconds to convince him otherwise. And I mean, convince him for a few different reasons. One, he's his coach. 2, he's lived with him for 2 years. They literally sit down and eat dinner together. They eat lunch together. They eat breakfast together. They sit in the same area throughout the entire day. He's coaching him. They know each other better than probably he's even his family, because he's there together every day, all week. So he has 40 seconds to understand, figure out why he's saying this, maybe reference something from practice or training that's happened before, bring it in and try and convince him right away. He's maybe in training a bunch of times, he said, I can't do 2 more minutes of a cardio drill. I'm done. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Or, you know, if they're hitting a bag and he's got a minute left, I can't finish it. Maybe he knows he's, you know, I don't want to say mentally weak, because we're not fighters in here. We don't know what it's like to be on the daily basis, but maybe he's seen it in training a ton of times before, and he lives with him and he knows how his personality and his mentality is. Maybe he thought in that 40 seconds, I've seen this so many times as his coach. I don't think he's banged up, and I don't think he's been knocked out, or I don't think he's, almost been submitted. He's just exhausted and he needs a mental retwitch. And
Yeah.
I really agree with what you guys are saying in terms of I wouldn't throw it on the coaching and the management, because I think that they know a lot more than anybody else does. And Drysdale knows a lot more than anyone else. So, I was hoping that he would convince him based on being able to get him over that mentality shift. But in the end, the doctor heard something. He came over and checked, and the fighter actually said, I'm done. And the doctor stopped it based on what the fighter said. So the person that should have stopped the fight actually ended up stopping the fight. And that was the fighter who said he didn't want to fight anymore. So I thought it actually worked out okay.
All right. I think now we'll move on to the first interview of Tanner Boser.
All right, next up on the Hooks in MMA podcast, we have Tanner the Bulldozer Boser from Bonnyville, Alberta. Huge match against Philippe Lins this Saturday, June 27th, at the Apex in Vegas. How you doing today, Tanner?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. So we were just chatting. You just headed to Vegas yesterday. You're all set up there and ready to go?
Yeah, we're here. Everything's here. And there's some beeping. What is that? Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Everything's going good, man. Just in the hotel room, and yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Just what goes into kind of a fight week? So you said you might have like a schedule set up for the week. Do you know what that entails? Like what's going on for the week before weigh-ins on Friday?
Well, we have to book time at the UFC Performance Institute. Man, I can't. Sorry, man. I don't know. They're fucking around with some alarm back here.
Yeah, no worries.
We have to book time with at the UFC Performance Institute. So we booked our times there every day. Be training, and then I have like a little bit of media obligations with the UFC tomorrow, but that's just an interview as well. And I think that's mostly it. But until I had those things hammered out, I had no idea what time slots were available.
Yeah. So just based on, we were talking about weigh-ins for a sec there. That's Friday. So you fight at heavyweight, but nowhere near the 265 limit, correct? So you how does weigh-ins work for you? Do you just kind of eat normally and do what you need to do, or is there a different process for that?
Yeah, I eat clean, but I eat normally. Like I can eat a lot. I taper down my eating a little bit before the fight, but that's my body just wants me to. I just want to eat less. And yeah, I mean, we just train every day, like do a decent training session because, we don't have to worry about cutting weight and stuff like that.
Yeah, fair enough. So I know you have a brother that fights MMA as well.
He had a pro fight quite a while ago. It's been years now. He coaches jiu-jitsu in Bonnyville, which is a pretty small town, but he's got a solid jiu-jitsu program there.
Okay.
But he doesn't like actively fight.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was just curious, kind of what got you into MMA. Was there a base that you started with and it kind of evolved from there? Or was it you and your brother, fighting in the backyard? It got it going. Just where did it start off?
Well, me and my brother definitely had a mutual interest in it. We watched all the UFC cards and Strikeforce and everything like that. But I did karate growing up from when I was 11 to when I was like 19, and that was kind of the starting point for me, I'd say. Okay.
And I was checking earlier, you didn't have any amateur fights, so not everybody does that, but just curious as to, did you have the proper training and you're ready to go to just kind of have a professional fight, or what reason, I guess, did you not start with maybe an amateur fight just to get going?
It was way harder to get amateur fights than pro fights in Alberta. They have an amateur scene now, and some commissions even require you to have a couple. At the time, amateur fights were way harder to come by. No, I was not ready at all. I just took a pro fight because I wanted to. King of the Cage had come to my a town near mine a couple times. Came to Cold Lake, and I watched a couple cards, and I trained with like my buddies, you know, to the best of our knowledge, like what we thought was the right way to train. We had no idea. I was not prepared at all. I wasn't in shape. I just thought that I could do it. So that is why how I took my first pro fight. It was dumb. I just got away with it.
Yeah, you definitely got away with it. Yeah, so you fought Tim Hague twice. You know, growing up, I had watched Tim Hague. You know, not a lot of big name heavyweights in Canada. He was definitely, if not the best at one point. I know you lost the first one when you came back and you won the second. Unfortunately, you know, we all know what happened with Tim, unfortunate in the ring and all that. But I guess just from that first fight, I think that was your first professional loss, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. The second fight, I guess, maybe what did you change in that fight to overcome that first loss?
By the time I fought him again, I'd already had 2 more wins. I had to rack up 2 wins to get the rematch.
Yep.
My leg kicks were starting to show, like I was starting to develop a certain kind of striking style. And we knew that Tim really only has 1, maybe 2 rounds in him. And then he was going to fade. There's no way he could make a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
So it was a 5-round. No, wait, it was a 3-round fight. I didn't fight Tim for the belt the second time around. He'd lost the belt to Tony Lopez. I just moved a lot and kicked him where I could, and then he started to visibly fade, which is what I should have done the first time, but I didn't even have that game plan the first time. I was a different fighter. I was young. I only had 6 fights. I didn't have any fights with anybody the caliber of Tim Hague when I fought him. He was my first UFC vet, you know, opponent.
Yep.
Type like that. So, you know, I learned a lot from that series of fights.
Yeah, so segueing from, you mentioned Tony Kryptonite Lopez. You fought him. I bring his name up because he's got 94 total fights. I find that incredible. There's not a lot of guys there's a few that I can think of. Jeremy Horn off my hand, maybe like a Dan Severn, something like that. But 94 total fights. It seemed like he was fighting like every other week at some point. I'm assuming because he loves it and because he needed a paycheck. But what was it like fighting a guy with that many fights, I guess that much experience going into a fight?
Yeah, Tony Lopez really kind of doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's a legend. You know, the guy takes, again, he's a complete physical abnormality that he can take fights a week or 2 weeks after a fight. Like he actually can, and he's fine. His body either heals super quick or he doesn't sustain lasting damage. I don't know how he fights as often as he does, or did anyways. Fighting him was a cool experience because I'd watched him beat Tim Hague. Tim won the belt from me in the first fight, and Lopez won the unified belt from Tim Hague. So I got my chance to reclaim my belt, and I did by beating Tony Lopez. I'd also watched him beat Tim Camelli, who was a fighter from Cold Lake, who in my early career I looked up to as well.
He's a big name.
So it was Tony Lopez was a really big fight for me at the time. Yeah.
No, I believe he also fought Joe Dirksen, one of Joe Dirksen's last fights before he hung them up. I was in Manitoba on a reserve teaching, and Joe Dirksen came up and gave some sessions to some of the Aboriginal kids up there. And I was lucky enough just to roll around on the mat and grapple with Dirksen. But I remember he fought Tony Lopez, which was pretty cool. Again, for the same reason, that many fights, a legend, you know, like you said, abnormalities, like superhuman to have that many fights, that close together. Right. So just a big name, and you're right. You know, maybe doesn't get as much credit as he should. What would you say out of, I think you're 17-6, correct?
17-6-1, yeah.
17-6-1, sorry. What would be your most disappointing loss thus far in your career?
I lost a split decision to Muhammad Vakayev in England, Russian, who would later become the champ of ACA. It was a split decision, and at the time, I thought I won the fight. When I watched it back, it was close enough. I'm not really bothered by it. My draw against Zar Gajbabayev that I had in Kazakhstan, I don't know how that was a draw. Like, I pretty sure I won that fight. It's not a loss, but in terms of decisions where I'm not sure how they arrived at that conclusion, would probably be that draw. You pretty much got to murder one of those guys on their home turf if you want to win a decision.
No kidding. I have to go back and watch that fight and take a look at that.
It's on M1's website. It's hard to find. If you want to watch it, go to M1's website.
Okay, I will. We start with the loss, and what would be the win you're most proud of then?
The win I'm most proud of is avenging my loss to Tim Hague.
Okay.
Me and Tim had a lot of beef for a while. We didn't get along, didn't see eye to eye. I hated him for a long period of time. Before he passed away, we were okay. We were civil. A couple times we sparred together through a kind of a mutual friend. We had a gym that a friend had that was all big heavyweights, and we were both invited, and we were civil after I beat him, because I think we kind of earned each other's respect. But I spent years of my life absolutely hating him. So being able to avenge that loss and knock him out was my favorite win for sure.
Awesome. So yeah, your last fight was against Cyril Gane in the UFC, or was that 2 fights ago?
No, that was my last fight.
Your last fight. So I watched TKO because a buddy of mine, gentleman Josh Hill, he's a bantamweight, has fought there a few times. Jesse Ronson's fought there a few times. He was double champ for a bit. I watched Gane come in there, and he beat Adam Ditska, and looked like he had a ton of skill. He could do a bit of everything, right? Came into the UFC, he was pretty successful. Your fight against him, I thought it was a great fight. He's never been to a decision before. You took him to that. I actually think you definitely have the skill to beat him. But what did you take away from that fight there?
I don't know if there's anything I took away from that fight. I had just lost. I just got outplayed. He's really good, really skilled guy. Once the momentum shifted in his favor, I just wasn't able to swing it back my way. That's just how it is. Yeah, he had some good wins in TKO, but I knew he was good. I could tell he was very good. His best win in TKO to me was how he dismantled Roger Souza. Roger is a really good fighter. Adam Ditska was 5-0 or something over all bums. He got fed absolute cans. I didn't care about that win. He had a very manufactured record, and the fact that people would talk about him as a top heavyweight in Canada pissed me off. But Gane's win over Rogers, and then his dominant wins in UFC, and then plus his kickboxing pedigree, Gane was quite clearly a very good fighter.
Yeah, I agree. The Souza win was definitely higher caliber than Ditska. So this weekend you fight Philip Lins. Just curious as to, he's coming from PFL and he won, 4 pretty good wins. He beat Copeland. He beat a couple other big names. Just curious what you've been focusing on against Lins in your training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I focused a lot on strength and conditioning because of the COVID situation, but I, of course, have strategic focuses for this fight against Lins. I'm not going to discuss them in any interview.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, he has some good wins, like you said. He did great in PFL, winning the $1 million tournament. That's one of the best things you could possibly do. That's a great chunk of change. I'm jealous. Like that's the shit.
Yeah.
As for, like you said, big names like Copeland. Yeah, Copeland's a name because he was a UFC vet, but I mean, it's not like he did great. I mean, he actually did kind of bad in UFC. He's tough. Copeland's very tough, very durable, hard-headed guy. And if you mess up, he'll knock you out. For sure he will. The same goes with Alex Nicholson. That guy's a maniac. He does crazy shit moving forward. And Rochalt is a wicked good wrestler.
Yeah.
And Lins beat all those guys. So Lins knows how to win. He's he's a very good fighter. So I definitely have to be on my game.
Yeah, I was reading an article last night, just kind of previewing the UFC card this weekend, and Linz was saying possibly if it gets to the to the ground, he thinks he has an advantage. I'd welcome him to do that. I think you can hold your own on the ground, but and we don't have to talk about specific game plans. I understand that, but if he thinks he can do that, well, he's got to get you there first. But I'm excited for the fight. I'm excited to see where it goes, and I think you have more in your game than he does. So I guess we'll see that in a few days. Just curious, fighter salary. So a lot of big names coming out and talking about fighter salary. There's been talk about potentially forming a union for 20 years. Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think it could ever happen? Are you in favor of that?
I don't know the logistics behind unionizing everything. I want to make more money. So, I mean, if that happens somehow, then great. But I mean, I'm not spearheading anything. I'm not the backbone of anything. I don't know how these things work, and I don't have a strong opinion on it. I'm not the guy to talk to about stuff like that.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, you said that Linz said that he thinks he has an advantage against me on the ground. That's interesting. He considers himself a striker. I know he's a good jiu-jitsu black belt, and he has some good submission wins. So that's good to know if he thinks that he's going to take me down. I mean, be my guest. Everybody's game plan is to push me on the cage and take me down because I get annoyed and don't want to take any more kicks and stuff. So
yeah.
I of course am cognizant of the fact that may be one of his ideas.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to hear. And yeah, you do have great kicks in your stand up for sure. Talking trash is part of sports. Just curious if anybody's in the rings ever talked trash to you or said anything crazy to you.
Most trash talk to me in a fight was probably Jared Kilkenny and also Muhammad Vakayev, but I couldn't understand that idiot. So he was definitely talking shit, but it was in, Russian. So I have no idea what he was saying. I think I said back, I was like, I don't know what you're saying. Like, fucking idiot. But yeah, Kilkenny talked a little bit. It was a little bit of trash talk, but it was mostly friendly banter. He hit me with a jab, and the way it glanced off my face, it split my eyebrow open. And he's like, cut you fucker, and stuff like that.
Nah, that's good. Next part here, almost finished. We do it between the round segment. I'm going to ask you a question. You're just going to give one answer to the other, and it's 60 seconds. So if I could just put the clock on here. We ready to go?
Sure.
All right. Steak, burgers, or chicken wings?
Burgers.
Bonnyville, Edmonton, or Calgary?
Bonnyville.
Alberta, BC, or Ontario?
Alberta.
Fighting or vacation?
One and then the other.
That's a good way to put it. MMA on the mat or on the feet?
Well, feet.
Knockout or submission?
Knockout.
Prefer Reebok sponsorships or individual sponsorships?
Individual.
Who do you match up better against, Derek Lewis or Alexei Oleinik?
Alexei Oleinik.
Jean Vellante or Maurice Green?
John Vellante.
Fabrizio Verdum or Alexander Gustafsson?
Gustafsson.
Junior Dos Santos or Jairzinho Rosenstrike?
Rosenstrike.
I would like to see you against Dos Santos, though. Who wins, Lee Main or Jordan Main?
Man, you know what? Fuck, man. Jordan, but only because Lee's 53.
Boser or Philippe Linz?
Oh, come on, man.
Decision, sub, or KO this weekend?
Decision.
Awesome. All right. Just lastly, any sponsors or shout-outs you'd like to give?
Sponsors, PPS, Paul Pedal Services, Premier Built Garages, and Mealcraft. Awesome.
This is Tanner, the Bulldozer Boser. Can't wait for Saturday, June 27th, Vegas, Apex Center. Gonna beat Philip Linz, get a W for Canada, and move on up the rankings. Thanks for coming on here, Tanner.
Right on, man. Thanks. Have a good day.
Yeah. Our next guest on the Hooks In MMA podcast, we have COO at BTC Fight Promotions, owner of BTC Gym in Burlington, Shari Carruthers.
Carruthers.
Welcome, Shari. How are you?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Just to start off, we just have a bit of breaking news for BTC. I just saw an announcement today on the Instagram account that the gym will be opening on Friday, which is huge news for a variety of reasons. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think we're very fortunate that we have a PSO, which is a professional sports organization. So we're through WACO Canada. So they really went to bat for a lot of their gyms and, you know, put a safety protocol in place, and they were able to get it in front of the Premier and Sports Canada, which, you know, was able to springboard us through just a little bit quicker than maybe your average fitness center.
No, that's awesome.
So, yeah, lots of safety protocols in place, some that were necessary through the province, but others that we deem necessary ourselves.
Yeah, and I was checking out, I guess, you know, drop-in stuff, all classes, exiting out one way, spraying down a lot of the stuff, all the measures that are needed to be taken, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, contact tracing, and, you know, we've put a safety protocol in place that's available for all our members to see. Our first stage is going to be basically an in and out policy. So the change rooms won't be available, you know, no showers, no lockers. We won't be selling any product. You know, once they come in, they'll be greeted by our front desk clerk, which will take their temperature, will take their information. And, you know, that's just our part in contact tracing. And then we have hired extra staff. So we'll have somebody that walks around all night just cleaning. So anything anybody could possibly touch is going to be cleaned the second they let go of it.
Yeah, that's definitely a good first step here. I'm hoping the phases go by quickly and you guys can get back to, you know, a sense of normalcy and, you know, back to what you were before all this happened. So crossing our fingers for that.
Absolutely. Something we're all looking forward to.
Yeah. I was just thinking back in the day when I used to go and watch, and with some buddies as well, to go watch some of the MMA cards in Ontario. There's only a few different ones. Score Fighting Series was the big one we would go to. There was also, you know, Slammer and the Hammer a couple times. But BTC is a big one now. It's very relevant. A lot of great cards, a lot of great fighters and staff, of course, and venues. And your headline on your BTC Instagram account says "Taking Pro MMA Across Ontario." So just wanted to ask a little bit about, you know, why that happened. Why do you take an interest in that? Why did you start it up?
Well, I think so. We started with BTC. So I'm an accountant by trade and a business junkie. So I love the business aspect of it. I love, you know, piecing everything together and making, you know, all the moving parts come together. So we originally started BTC Fight because we had two fighters at the time that were working for BTC, and there just wasn't anything regional anymore after Score had, you know, kind of faded away.
Yeah.
So we certainly thought that we wanted to give them, you know, that opportunity. And, you know, there was, you know, looking for a little niche in the market, hopefully something, you know, nobody was doing at that time. So, yeah, we did our first show, BTC Win, at Toronto Pro Super Show. And I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. We had no ice. We had no towels. We were running down to the pool at the hotel we were at. We were running up to everybody's rooms to take towels. We knew nothing. I learned so much that day that I'll never forget it. It actually gave us the opportunity to, that's when we decided that every single show we do, no matter how many we do, we will improve at.
Absolutely. Like you jumped right in that first card, like you said, the first day, and you know, maybe you don't know anything at the start, but you got to 9 shows now, and that's happened with a ton of success. So like you said, you learn every card, I'm sure. You learn all the processes. And I guess that's my next question. What's like a day-to-day operation look like for you and for your team?
So doing 4 shows a year, I think a lot of people don't realize that while you're putting on, so for instance, BTC 8, while I was putting on BTC 8 in Niagara Falls, I was also, was the end of our year, so the end of November, I was also dealing with the MMA awards that we host every year. So I was locking down that venue and getting, you know, my team working on guest lists and invitations being sent out. And while we were doing that, you know, still doing those two things, I was locking down my February venue and dealing with the commissioner on that. And then I don't really like leaving things to chance. So, I mean, we were working forward. So, you know, at the same time we were dealing with the city of Burlington for our June card, which obviously we've had to postpone. And, you know, and I had locked down St. Catharines for what was supposed to be BTC 12, even before we'd hit the new year. So, you know, we're doing everything all at once. It's, you know, it's not usually just, you know, our focus isn't usually just one show. It's, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, but if, you know, as we're moving through the show, you know, potentially a month out, you know, we're dealing with fighters' flights and we're working with our matchmaker to make sure medicals are done or not done. And how can we, you know, drive them and direct them to get done? There's always bodies that are injured and falling out. And, you know, we're looking for last minute replacements and what are we willing to spend on a last minute replacement? You know, and does that bring value to the show? And, you know, or do we just walk away and move on? You know, there's always, you know, commissioner, and then, you know, we have EMS and police, and, you know, every day can be just, you know, you could just be spinning in circles.
Absolutely. I know that it's got to be a ton of work. Obviously, I'm not involved in any of that, but just hearing the disappointing news today that our guest from last night, Kyle Nelson's fight was canceled in Las Vegas, and he didn't get his P1 petition, I guess, approved for him to fly to Vegas. So disappointing news, but I guess it comes in within the territory of you talking about, you know, preparation and not leaving things to chance and stuff. It's unfortunate for him and for the card and for a lot of MMA fans, including, you know, myself and our group of friends. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes. And I know, you know, we all respect all that stuff more than you could know. So we appreciate all you've done so far.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite fight out of the 9 cards that you guys have put together so far? What's your favorite fight?
It's funny that you would ask me that, because today is the anniversary of BTC 3. So BTC 3 is probably my favorite show that we've ever done. And it's because it was our first titles. I had the privilege of designing the belts, which was, you know, very special to me. It was something that lasted a really long time, going back and forth. And then I was fortunate enough to, you know, get in the cage and present one of our own, Adam Asenza, with the belt for lightweight. So that was a night that I think I probably won't soon forget.
That's amazing. And just because you mentioned Adam's name, his nickname's Maverick, and we just had our first kid last August, and that's his name, Maverick. So it wasn't because of him, but just ironic that you mentioned his name as well. So who did he fight that fight? Do you remember?
Sean Wallace.
Sean Wallace. Okay. Yeah, he always puts on a good show. He's coming forward and doesn't leave anything to chance either. He looking to finish the fight all the time. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So within your organization, some of the names, you just mentioned one, a few others maybe that you think potentially could move on to some, you know, huge promotions across the world. Not to say that BTC isn't, but just the talent to move on to, you know, maybe a UFC or potentially a Bellator.
Definitely Adam Asenza. I would say Scott Hudson. I think, you know, Aaron Jeffrey has massive potential. I mean, Siri City's another one of ours. You know, he's young, still got a little growth, but, you know, he's definitely incredibly talented and athletic. You know, Jasmine from, Jasmine's going to go, I think. What's that?
Is it Jostavicius?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't pronounce the name.
Yeah, Jostavicius from Niagara Top Team. She's going to go probably sooner than later, I think. She's scary tough. She's just scary tough. Yeah. Got to watch her for the first time at BTC 8, and she just ran through this girl that, you know, in seconds, in absolute seconds. It wasn't even a fair fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say they're probably my top. I mean, there's so much talent in Ontario. There's so much talent in Ontario, which is exactly why we always said we were going to take this across the province, because I feel like everybody should get to experience what it's like to fight at home.
100%. I was thinking, I love projecting, what could be next for some fighters. I think Scott could be, a fight away. Aaron Jeffrey could be a fight away. Like his 2 losses are against 2 guys in the UFC, one undefeated and another guy, Brendan Allen, that fights this weekend as well. He fought on Dana White Contender Series. So he's got a lot of talent as well. So those names you mentioned are some big ones.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, people don't understand the level of talent we have here in Canada. And it really is deep. There just hasn't been consistently places for them to fight and to develop and grow.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm hoping that we can be a part of that, and we just keep pushing forward for them.
Yeah, we are too. And again, the 9 shows so far have been fantastic. And if we can get back to, getting cards out there, we'll be able to expose them even more. So we appreciate that. So just talking about potentially some rumors or maybe some things that could be in line in the near future. Is there any talks about any cards for BTs coming up that could be finalized or?
Nothing finalized, but I'm pretty committed that we had said we were going to do 4 shows this year, and we've only been able to do 1 so far. And I'm not against doing anything without fans. I would have no issue doing that. That's something that we have been talking to the commissioner about. That's something we've been working with him. We needed to hit phase 2 so that the athletic commission can talk to public health to see where we would stand. So I mean, the Toronto area finally hit phase 2, which brings all of the province into phase 2. Well, they will tomorrow. So that should give the commissioner the opportunity to talk to public health to see where we stand. I've already built my safety plan for, what we could do with the fighters. And, I already know where we would have it. And that's already been tentatively approved by the commission. We just need public health to tell us, I can assume what they want. I'm the queen of contingency plans, but, I can assume what they want from what, other places have had to go through to open up. And, I can build my safety protocol on that, but ultimately I have to wait for Ontario to tell me what they need.
Yeah, of course. We look forward to hopefully hearing something set in stone. Even if no fans, do you think there'd be a good opportunity that it could be bought and watched, online somewhere? Or?
Absolutely. So we ourselves live stream and sell that live stream every show anyways, and it always does well for itself. I mean, I think I'm a firm believer that, everything presents opportunity. So, through COVID, we've had a little extra time, and I've been able to push my team and, even myself to make some connections and, to grow a little bit with BTC Fight. So we were able to do a TV deal with UFA, which put us on, a lot of NBC sports channels through the States.
I saw that. That was recent, right? In the last few months?
So we had probably about 100 viewings on different NBC sports channels in June. We did about 150 in July. So BTC 3 and 4 are going to air in August, and they're expecting it to be between 150 to 200 viewings then.
That's awesome.
So great for our athletes, great for the promotion. And so far I'm fielding probably about 90 to 100 emails after every month, just from questions or, accolades or wanting to know about fighters. So it's definitely been great for us.
No, that's awesome. Are you able to give potentially some projected names that could be on this first card to come back, or is that a little too soon to?
It's really going to depend on if the borders are open.
Yeah.
We always try to give our 3 boys from BTC the opportunity to fight on every card. So, I mean, it would definitely be Adam, Scott, and Siri if that's, if they were healthy and that's what they chose to do. I know my matchmaker probably has the next 15 cards matched up. So, I mean, I know he knows who they're going to fight. I mean, it's always nice to have as many people locally fight, because then, ultimately we know they're, I guess if we go a live stream, it's not so different. But if we're putting asses in the seats, then, you need those guys that are here locally. That's what's going to turn
sell
dollars.
the tickets.
And as we get to the top end of the card, so the Adams and the Scotts, it becomes more and more difficult to find somebody local. So chances are good we're flying them in, or a female fighter. So if we had somebody like Jazz or Lindsay Garbett on the card, we're always flying somebody in because there just isn't enough female fighters.
Yeah.
You know, we're working really hard right now at trying to grow a couple weight classes that we know we're short in. So, I mean, there's not a lot of heavyweights through the province of Ontario. So we have been fortunate enough to sign two multi-fight deals with BTC Fight. So, I mean, our goal is definitely to grow that, you know, that weight class to try and attract more bodies to come on board for that.
Would those be the guys that were supposed to be on the BTC 9 card, or?
Yeah, so it would be Mike Mead and Tim Kronk.
Okay.
Are two that we've signed to multi-fight deals. So Mike's going to be making his pro debut, and Tim made his pro debut in New York and wasn't successful, but he'll be successful in the BTC Fight cage.
Yeah, of course. And I know we're going to have Jesse the Body Snatcher Ronson on in a week or two, and I know he's been vying for a fight, so maybe we can get him on that card too.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, it all depends. And seeing with somebody like him as well, you know, he would be considered at the top end of the card. It's like there wouldn't be anybody around here to fight him.
Yeah,
you know, it has to be somebody flown in to fight him. And I mean, there's always going to be bodies. It's just going to be a matter of, you know, if the border's going to be open. So I mean, as of right now, they're saying the borders are closed till the 21st of July. So if anything happens prior to that, it's going to be hard pressed for the top part of our card.
How do we continue to build the Canadian MMA brand? I guess beyond BTC, because I feel like you guys are doing a great job at that. What else can we do to contribute to this and keep building us up?
You know, I have a very definite opinion, and I've been very fortunate enough to spend some time with some folks from UFC, and you know, they've been very kind to us and allow us to come down, and I've been privileged enough to take, you know, behind the scenes tour, and I think what we're lacking is that complete fighter. So I mean, I think you're doing your part too, and I think, you know, I think fighters need to understand that there is value to their social media. You know, we need to make sure that UFC or Bellator or One knows that these guys have an army behind them, that there's folks that want to interview them. There's people that want to listen to these interviews, that there's social media, and that they have sponsors, and, you know, that they're not just a flash in the pan. I mean, if their city's going to back them, if, you know, those that love the sport are going to back them, I think that says a lot, because I don't care whether you're a regional promotion or UFC. I mean, ultimately it's a business, and you want to put asses in the seats.
Yeah.
You know, so you want these guys to be the complete fighter. You want to know that they're coming with a following. You want to know that there's somebody. So, I mean, the more that we can get these guys out there, the more exposure we can get for them, the more that we can push, you know, through their social media. I think it's all just going to draw more and more attention to them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Our last segment's called Between Rounds. So I'm just going to ask you a question that will be a kind of like a one-word answer. I'm going to put the clock on for 1 minute, and we do our best to answer as many as we can, I guess.
Okay.
So we will start. We're good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Seafood or steak dinner?
Oh, steak.
Walking or running?
Running.
East Coast or West Coast?
East.
BTC or Unified?
Oh, BTC.
Muay Thai or boxing?
Boxing.
Your favorite division, bantamweight or featherweight?
Bantam.
Bantamweight or welterweight?
Bantam.
And bantamweight or middleweight?
Middleweight.
Do you watch UFC?
I do.
Just some of the upcoming fights on Fight Island. Who do you think's going to win? Aldo or Peter Yan?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Sorry, Jose Aldo or Peter Yan?
Jose.
Holloway or Volkanovski 2?
Holloway.
Holloway all the way.
Yeah.
Usman or Burns?
Usman.
Figueiredo or Benavidez 2?
I'm sorry, I lost you on that one.
Davison Figueiredo or Benavidez 2?
Figueiredo.
And this weekend we have Tanner Boser or Philippe Lins?
Boser.
Awesome. For last minute replacements for a fight, sometimes you got to find someone to fill in the fighters, just for for commentary. If somebody backed out calling the fights, if somebody dropped out, can you call me?
Of course.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
You'd have to talk. So I mean, that would either be Josh or Jason. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I was thinking maybe I could get Josh sick or something, feed him some. And any last shout outs before we finish up? Just any stuff you wanted to add at the end?
Yeah, just that we have, so we did a great crossover with BTC Fight Clothing and Grungy Gentleman. He's a New York fashion designer. Took a couple of our boys down there, and they had the privilege of walking the runway in New York Fashion Week. So we are expanding our BTC Fight Clothing, and he is actually going to make his way up from New York at around the end of July. We're going to announce the date probably tomorrow. And we are actually going to put on a fashion show with all the new BTC Fight clothing with about 20 models at our gym, and they're going to be all fighters.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we're going to create our own New York Fashion Week right here with the designer himself, and yeah, they're going to get to walk the runway. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, the guys seem to be really excited about it. So
that's awesome. Yeah, just wanted to thank you again for your time. This is COO Shari Carruthers, BTC Fight Promotions, and this is Hooks in MMA. Thank you again, Shari.
Appreciate it, Matthew. Bye.
All right, welcome back, Hooks in family. And tonight in this segment, we're going to be going over the easy lines of this upcoming UFC fight night, Poirier versus Dan Hooker. It's 8 p.m. on Saturday night. It's the main card at the Apex Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Just to kind of start us off here, this Hooker and Poirier fight could easily be a co-main event on any pay-per-view. Looks to be a great main event and really has a chance to be fight of the year, actually, in my opinion. Also some interesting matchups with Mike Perry fighting Mickey Gall, Luis Pena versus Kama Worthy as well. We'll just kind of get it started off here with the main event. Hooker, plus 180 versus Poirier at minus 220. Poirier's last fight was for the title against Khabib, in which he lost it by submission in the third round. He was on a 5-fight win streak previous to this over Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, and Anthony Pettis. So, right, some great wins there. Dan Hooker, he's on a hot streak himself right now. He has his last 3 wins over Paul Felder, Ali Quinta, and James Vick as well. Was stopped by Barboza before that in a very excellent striking match where he really held out to the very last second against Barboza. He was one of the most technical strikers in the UFC overall. So yeah, Hooker going into this fight, I mean, he has the reach and height advantage as per usual for him. But I don't really necessarily see him going to be able to use that to his advantage on Saturday night against Poirier. Again, they're fighting within that Apex Center, smaller 25-foot cage as opposed to the 30-foot normal cage. His game plan is going to be to, really stay on the outside, use his length to jab and kick. But with less space, Dustin's really going to be able to get on the inside, use his top-notch dirty boxing, technical striking, and what I believe is he's going to get the win tonight or win on Saturday night, money line. But yeah, I mean, Zone, what do you think, and what did you kind of see when you're taking a look at this matchup?
Yeah, I totally agree. Dustin Poirier has fought like the cream of the crop. Besides his mishap against Michael Johnson 4 years ago, the guy's been on an absolute tear. He's won 9 of those fights. If you look past the Johnson one before he lost to McGregor, and if you look at who he's fought literally like your championship fight up to your top 10. Whereas I see Hooker has fought outside the top 5 guys to your top 15 or even beyond that. So I'm a big guy and a firm believer in who you've fought and who you've beat. And very simply put, Poirier has a better resume. He's actually fought for the title, and the guys that he's fought, if you add it all up, are much better than Hooker's. Hooker still fought some good guys. He's, the last fight, that war with Felder, was an absolute must watch. If you haven't watched it, you must. I'd get in there on UFC Fight Pass or find a way. Maybe it's on YouTube for free, but that was an absolute barn burner. Amazing 5-round fight. Poirier's just better. They're about the same age. Hooker does have the 3-inch height advantage. But Poirier, he's working himself right back to where he should be. And I don't see it going any other way this weekend. Hooker does have a puncher's chance, but Poirier is the better fighter. And I see him winning at the very least a 5-round decision, possibly a later round submission, possibly in the 4th or 5th round. But
yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And yeah, the only Hooker's only path to victory I see here is catching him in probably the 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th round. But Dustin's, I think, is a little bit too savvy for that. As you said, he's been through some wars with people. He TKO'd Justin Gaethje. This was kind of, pre-Justin Gaethje before he kind of got with Whitman and stuff like that. But, that was a crazy fight, 4th round TKO. Eddie Alvarez, he TKO'd, went to decision with Max Holloway. And yeah, I mean, he's going to, give up some reach and advantage. But since he's moved up to this light heavyweight from featherweight, he's looked extremely powerful, man. He looks thick. Even Max Holloway, was taller than him. And he was able to get on the inside, it seemed like pretty easily against a very well practiced striker in Max Holloway. So
and even though Holloway moved up, based on the run he's gone on before he lost to Volkanovski, like I was actually beyond ecstatic with Poirier. Like he dominated that Holloway fight. Like I thought Holloway moves up because he was going to be that next potential double champ. And he comes up to 155 and fights Poirier, who's a solid guy at the time. And Poirier just cements how good he is. Like that was a really impressive win. And since then I've been, very high on him.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And, the only, fault we can give Poirier, at least the last couple of years, is really that Khabib fight. And really everyone that happens to everyone with Khabib.
Happened to McGregor, right? So it's.
Exactly. It's the same. And actually McGregor probably, has probably done the best against, anyone out of, going against Khabib. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the money, the play here is definitely, Poirier money line. You want to parlay that with a few things that we're going to talk about a bit later, but also in general, I really want to talk about, my kind of hot prop of the night, which is the Hooker versus Poirier over 2.5 at -110. Again, both these guys are tough, technical strikers. I don't really see either one of them kind of, luring the other one into a trap of some sort where they're going to get right crossed or whatever, left crossed by Poirier, out of nowhere, right? So they're not going to put each other in a super vulnerable position right away. They're going to play it smart. But I see one of them working the other one down, perhaps, of course, heavily leaning on Poirier to do that. I could see that happen, late 3rd round TKO, 4th round TKO. But I really think that the hard money play here is, and my biggest pick of the night is over 2.5 in that Hooker Poirier fight -110. Also looking at, if you're looking at a little bit more of a value or you don't believe that it's going to finish, Poirier by decision +350. That's a little bit too much juice for me. I'm looking at that pretty hard as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Early on in the week, I was looking at the +180 for Hooker, just coming off the win against Felder, and he's a very good fighter. Like let's not get that wrong. But just, researching more and looking it up and checking all the statistics around Poirier, and man, I think he's a complete package other than that loss to Khabib. But I am 100% on board with you for the 2.5. Hooker, that battle with Felder for the 5 rounds was unbelievable. And I don't think the momentum stops after a fight like that. I don't think he comes in here and loses in the 1st or 2nd round against Poirier, as good as Poirier is. I think they feel out for a round. I think in the 2nd round, they really start throwing, and it gets into the 3rd at least. So I 100% agree with the 2.5 rounds. It actually could be a 5-round decision win for Poirier. It could end up being a 49-46. And I'm on board with that, and I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know if I don't know what it is about these over-unders, but I seem to have a decent knack for them when I'm waiting them out. And that one looks almost a little too easy for me. And, goes to our name of our segment here, Easy Lines. So that one looks a little easy for me. So I'm going to take that and put a few units down on that minus 110.
I'm actually willing to bet our friendship on that. If it doesn't go over 2.5 rounds, I think we're done.
We're never talking again.
No.
Shut her down. Shut the podcast down, everyone. But yeah, no,
I'm so on board with that, man.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about it, but I just don't see either one of those doing that to each other. It's not going to happen again. And Hooker, he has crazy knees, as we've seen. He knees the shit out of people. But I don't think Poirier is gonna really fall for that, and it's gonna go the over on that for sure. So yeah, jumping to the next one though, co-main event, we're looking at Mickey Gall versus Mike Perry. Mike Perry has lost 5 of his last 7 fights. Despite that, walks into the octagon as a very heavy favorite at minus 334 as we speak, versus Mickey Gall, who's a plus 250, who's 2-2 in his last 4. Holds wins over the mighty CM Punk and Sage Northcutt, and got TKO'd by Diego Sanchez a year ago. But I do remind our fans that, CM Punk did hold very many heavyweight championships, which is more than Mike Perry could say. So who knows? But, this is going to be a very tough bet for me because, I highly expect Mike Perry to win this fight, right? I definitely expect him to win by decision or finish either way. But he's fought much better competition at the end of the day. And with the likes of going to the distance with people like Paul Felder, I believe as well. He went to this. Oh yes, Alex Oliveira as well, Vince Luque as well. So he's gone against some really tough competition. Whereas you look back at Mickey Gall and he hasn't fought nearly the same type of competition. So I really believe Mike Perry is going to bring that type of experience. But we're looking at some weird kind of qualitative factors with Mike Perry. You get to, he's had a lot of his girlfriend on his Instagram lately. He says his girlfriend's going to be the only one in his corner for this fight, even though I don't really believe Mike Perry was listening to his corner previously anyway. So yeah. I don't think that's even gonna make much of a difference. Who knows? It might even help him. He's the opposite of everything you think is regular. He's like the George Costanza. He just started doing the opposite of everything that's working out. So we'll see what happens there. But the bettors are still giving him a lot of respect, even though with this kind of situation. But where do you see kind of that fight going, and what did you see when you were taking a look?
Yeah, I'm a big Mike Perry fan, and he's always got exciting fights, and his Instagram posts are hilarious, and quality of competition. I always refer back to that, and you just mentioned that. Mickey Gall, like give me a break. Like the guy's 6-2, correct? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, 6-2. Yeah.
Like he's fought 8 fights in his career. Like CM Punk is one of his wins. Like, come on, man. Like Platinum Mike Perry, he's due for a win, and I've said this all week. Like, I know the money says that, but my thing is I think Gall, it's going to be one of those fights where he ends up like laying there on the ground at some point, and he's looking to pull guard. He's trying to grab a hold of a leg. If Perry just stays away from that shit and just stands up, and some fights you're watching and a guy doesn't want to stand, he's laying on the ground, he's like trying to pull guard and trying to grab a leg, and then that guy that normally stands up and bangs looks at him and says, just get the fuck up. I think Perry does that this fight, and when that happens, Perry touches him up on the feet. But the juiciest thing you could ever see is a plus 550 for Perry to win by decision. Do I think this is going to happen? Possibly. I'm not going to say it's my guarantee, but if we're talking value bets, and I know this is a little bit earlier, we like to talk about value bets later. A value bet of Perry winning, because I think he's going to win, possibly not knocking him out because Gall might be a little extra safe because he knows about the knockout power. I think plus 550 is a crazy, crazy decision that could happen. And you could maybe parlay it with one other, like a Poirier money line. So that would be my play.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I was looking at Mike Perry plus 550 as well. That looks pretty juicy. Yeah, I know I could definitely see that happening, right? Because, you know, let's say Mike Perry comes out, starts touching him up in the first round. Gall realizes, okay, I'm going to have to start relying much more on my grappling. And, you know, he starts trying to out-grapple him second round, slows down the fight, something like that, right? So I don't really necessarily see Mickey Gall looking to play the trade for trade game with Mike Perry, because Mike Perry's a guy that's willing to take two to give you one, and most guys are not willing to do that with him. So yeah, I think he's going to look to slow it down, but at the end of the day, Perry's going to win, 29-28 decision, or at least I could see that, very well happening. Could Perry come in and just, run through him and end up getting, like, let's say a second round TKO or something? I could see that as well.
Absolutely, it could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. But, I think that plus 550 with the points looks pretty good. With that smaller cage, again, that's going to allow Gall to kind of get in there and slow down the fight, I think, use his grappling to at least, make sure that Perry's not, releasing those kind of overhand rights and those elbows that he has. So I think we're looking at that, to kind of, potentially go the distance on in terms of the value at least. And at the end of the day, if you're not liking that as much, Mike Perry, just straight money line with, say, Poirier money line, or, again, Mike Perry with that over 2.5 in the Poirier Hooker fight. I think you're looking at a nice, double up on a unit there as well.
Yeah, the over 2.5, like you said, and a Perry money line. I like that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, let's see, actually, I'll do it right now, just to take a look. What did that ends up getting you? That's a plus 138. So, like, that's, that's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Throw $100 on that, and
exactly.
There you go.
Well, you more than double, right? It's not like it's, it's like there's no juice on that, right? So,
nope.
When you put them together, right? So, next up, I'll jump on is we'll talk we'll go right in next segue into Sean Woodson versus Julian Erosa. That's on the main card as well. Woodson comes in I think the biggest favorite on this card, I believe, minus 450. He's 7-0. Julian Erosa takes this fight on short notice, plus 350. 23-8 though, so pretty experienced guy, but had 3 fights in the UFC in which he lost all 3, got cut, moved to a regional show. I think he even KO'd or TKO'd the guy in the first round. So UFC called him back up here short notice to face Sean Woodson. I mean, what are your thoughts on this one, Zone? And what did you see?
Yeah, so just personally, this is a little bit disappointing. So we interviewed Kyle the Monster Nelson from Huntsville, Ontario. Pretty exciting prospect, actually. So Kama Worthy, who's also on this card, Nelson knocked him out a few years ago. Pretty impressive win. We interviewed Nelson this week, and we're looking to put him on this the podcast with Tanner Boser, a fellow Canadian, because they're both fighting on the same card. Unfortunately, Nelson's P1 petition didn't go through. He wasn't able to fly to Vegas. Kind of, a UFC error on that point. I'm not sure with the pandemic and being able to host all these cards and finding a way to, make it so these cards keep running while other sports aren't running. They didn't figure this one out, but kind of feel bad for the guy. Good opportunity here. He finished Polo Reyes the last fight. Looking to come in and fight a 6'3", catch weight at 150. Unfortunate for him. So I kind of feel for him. A little bit off topic, but they did have to fill in him for that fight, and they put in Erosa. 3 losses in the UFC. Like I was talking last week, the Barrio and Pajota fight, both had 3 losses, and they're looking to do something. So you can't just come in and win a decision. I know at one point, he was fighting on the Contender Series, and he actually won that by decision. Did they give him a contract after? No, it wasn't good enough. That's why he ended up going to another show, and he got a win. They brought him back. So I don't think he's coming in looking just to, bang it out for 3 rounds and get a decision, I think he's going to come forward. Unfortunately, I think Woodson's a little bit too skilled. He's only got 7 fights, but he's 6'3". This is really interesting. He's 6'3", and he's fighting Rosa, who's 6'1". So 2 of the tallest, I guess you could call them featherweights. I'm pretty sure it's still a catchweight. I think it's going to be a really exciting fight. And where I'm going with this is where I was going last weekend. Someone's got a lot to prove, and Woodson has completely thrown all the game plan out the window. He was supposed to fight Nelson. So whatever he was planning on before can't happen now. And now he's fighting a guy that's 3 inches taller, a guy that's coming back into the UFC, and a guy that's going to want to come out and earn a contract. So my play on this one is under 2.5 rounds, like it was last week, with the potential of being under 1.5 rounds. Unfortunately, again, like last week, these lines haven't come out because it's a late replacement fight. So as soon as this comes out, if you guys take a look, my suggestion, under 2.5 rounds for Woodson and Arosa, with the potential of actually, if you could juice it up with something else, under 1.5 rounds.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that as well. What do you think? Like, what do you think the minus? I know we can't look at it quite yet. Let's say the under 2.5. What do you like? Would that be a minus 110? Would that be like a minus 130?
What do I think it's going to be?
Yeah.
Well, I'd go with, based on what I was just saying, and could be wrong, but just instinct, I would say the under 2.5 rounds would probably be minus 120.
Right.
And under 1.5 rounds might give you a plus 120 or a plus 140 or something like that. So it could even be higher. But
yeah,
either way, my play is under 2.5 rounds, Woodson and Arosa, with the potential, if it's a good enough value and you can play it with something else, under the 1.5.
Okay, great. Well, moving on to our next one here. It's on the main card as well. We have Tanner Boser, Canadian boy here at heavyweight versus Philip Lins. Lins brings a record of 14-4 into the octagon this time. Was fighting in Bellator for a couple of years there. Had one fight in went to PFL and won the heavyweight tournament there. Had one fight against Arvlovsky, who's a very high level competitor of the heavyweights still, and lost to him by decision just a month ago actually. So he's staying very active. Tanner Boser, he is 17-6 right now. His last fight was a loss to Cyril Kane. Had wins over Daniel Spitz. Previous to that, within the UFC. So yeah, I mean, these are both kind of a little bit more experienced heavyweights. That it's actually not the typical story, I guess, for heavyweights, that they both love to go to decisions. It seems like. But yeah, I mean, what you kind of see there, Zone, and yeah, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, we're lucky on our podcast. We had Tanner on the other day and we talked with him. He had a variety of, really interesting takes to talk about. So first of all, the last fight against Cyril Gane, if there's one guy in the UFC, maybe even a top 3 or top 5 in the UFC that I'm high on, Cyril Gane is one of them. This guy is he is the next. I'm telling you, he's going to be close to being an Ngannou. This guy is unbelievable. I remember watching him in TKO. He knocked out an undefeated Canadian heavyweight, Adam Ditska. Not a great record. He kind of had a padded record. But then he fights Souza, who's unbelievable worldwide. He's phenomenal. He only had one other loss, and he's killed a bunch of other guys. And he made it look like it was me fighting a 5-year-old. He made it look so easy. This guy is absolutely unbelievably athletic on his feet. He's so quick. He uses his hands, his elbows, his legs. His takedown defense is unbelievable. So I'm extremely high in Cyril Gane. So I'm not taking anything away from Tanner in that aspect, because he's the first guy to take Cyril to a decision. And I actually thought that was really impressive. Philip Linz obviously won $1 million. He's a PFL winner. Anytime you win $1 million, it's pretty cool. He won 4 fights in PFL to do that. He comes over and he definitely won at least a round against Arlovsky, who's, you know, one of the best heavyweights of all time. Whether he's, you know, different now than he was a couple of years ago, I don't really care, because he's still legit, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Linz is coming in, and I read an article the other day saying he actually sees a little bit of a hole in Tanner's game. He could potentially get it down to the mat and potentially submit him. Could that happen? Absolutely. Tanner's just really strategic. He's solid on his feet. He's solid on the ground. He throws unbelievable leg kicks. That's probably his soup du jour. What's that again? That's the soup of the day.
Yeah.
He throws great leg kicks, and he's solid everywhere. So in my opinion, this fight goes to a decision. I don't think anything else happens. Potentially, Linz, if he's talking about getting to the ground, because he does have good stand-up, that could be possible. I don't think there's any knockout punch in this fight. I think it goes over 2.5 rounds. I think it goes to the distance. Really hoping Tanner Boser wins, but we'll see what happens.
No, I think that the main play here from us for sure is like going the distance at -200. I'm looking at it right now. You know, just to parlay that with a few of the other picks that we said earlier, I think it is one of the best plays here within this fight. Or, you know, both of these guys are very similar, as we've said, love to go to the distance. So really, I think whoever you prefer, you know, you take them by the distance, right? You take them by to win by decision. That's going to give you that extra juice there. That's going to make it kind of worth your while to bet on that. So
yeah, and Z, the other thing we were talking about like 20 minutes ago, right? These guys are really small heavyweights, right? A couple of them, a couple of the fights in the past, they fought at 205, 215 catch weights. Like, these guys aren't, you know, 280 and cutting down to 265. Like, they're pretty versatile. So it could be like an interesting, like, quickness type of fight for a heavyweight. Like, they could be moving pretty well. There could be a lot of output, I'm thinking, but I don't know if there's that knockout punch that's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if they have the power to get it like that, or to finish each other like that. So I think just to kind of summarize our main plays here, the main that we've kind of gone over the main card fights here. So I mean, if you're looking at the parlay a few things here, some of the main picks, as we said, you know, previously, we're looking at a lot of chalk this week, as opposed to last week where we had a few, you know, Tisha Torres and a few other underdogs. I think, you know, we're really looking at a lot of the favorites this week. So to kind of summarize, you know, Poirier, you know, money line -220. If you're looking, you know, you can parlay that with Mike Perry money line. You can parlay that with Linz and Boser money line, to go to distance. You get Sean Woodson money line in there, Maurice Green, as we already spoke about before. But, you know, my really main point there is Poirier money line and the over 2.5 with Hooker versus Poirier. That is going to be the main play this week from Easy Lines, that we're going to be, you know, adding our most units in and parlaying that with a few other things as well.
Yeah. If we want to talk about the value picks next, that'd be great.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead. What else are you looking at in terms of value?
Yeah. So I've talked it on the podcast before. I am absolutely, like, hugely a big fan of Brendan Allen. Like, not so much like a fan, like I'm, you know, enthralled with the guy as a person, but just in terms of talent. Brendan Allen is, in my opinion, potentially the next middleweight top 5 challenger. And I'm not saying like in the next year, but in the next 2 years, this guy has every tool in the book. So just to run down a couple of things here. So he's 14-3 total. He's got 5 knockouts and 8 subs. So 13 finishes out of 14 fights. He's won 6 in a row. One of our fellow Canadians that's going to come on the show in the next month or so, Aaron Jeffrey. I believe he's from Tilsonburg. They both fought on Dana White Contender Series. And Jeffrey is like, this guy is legit. In a couple of years, in the next year, he might even be in the UFC, but in a couple of years, he's going to be pretty talented as well. Jeffrey only has 2 losses, one to this Brendan Allen and another one to an undefeated guy that's already in the UFC. So his 2 losses are against guys that are like on the way up and like legit guys. So Allen, like I said, won 6 in a row. He was on the Contender Series, and since then, he's won 2. He's had 2 finishes against Kevin Holland and Tom Breeze. Tom Breeze is a pretty legit name. Dawkins, the guy he's fighting next, is 9-0. Kyle Dawkins, 8 finishes, and they're all subs. Okay, so 8 out of 9 wins, all submissions, and it's his first UFC fight. He had a Dana White Contender Series fight as well, and he wasn't called back after that. I think he left for a couple of fights, and then they've just recalled him back to the show.
Yeah.
This to me, potential fight of the night. That's what I think. Besides obviously the main fight with Hooker and Poirier, this would be my next one in line. I think that since Dawkins has finished 8 of 9 by sub, I think he's going to be solid enough on the ground that he's not going to get finished on the ground. Standing up, Allen has 5 knockouts out of his 14 wins. That could happen, but my play for this one, I think it's going to be fight of the night. I think it's going to go 3 rounds, and I think Allen, based on his skill set and who he's fought and having a 6-fight win streak, I think he makes it 7, and I think it's by decision. So that's my value play. I think he at plus 300, he wins by decision. I think it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think Dawkins loses for the first time, but I don't think he gets finished. I think it's just a tough fight. Gets to the end of the 3rd round, and Allen wins by decision.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and that's what kind of that's what kind of makes me afraid when I see guys that have those 8 of their last 9 fights they've won by submission, all outside of the UFC. I feel like they kind of they get too used to that. I'm just gonna darts choke this guy every time. No one can stop my darts choke. No one can, I just get on the ground and do that to him. But once you get to the UFC, these guys they know how to defend everything, right? At least the basics of everything, they know how to handle it. Whereas those regional shows, you're gonna run into guys that have never even seen some of those things already.
Yeah,
right?
and this guy does. Like Brendan Allen, I'm
Yeah.
not even lying. Like where you can project somebody to be like, you know what they're going to be in a couple of years unless they fall off a cliff. Like Allen is absolutely unbelievable everywhere. This guy, I'm really high on him. I seriously think in the next 2 years, he'll be in the top 5 in the UFC.
Yeah, I'm looking at even like one of his losses is to Eric Anders like a couple of years ago, and Aaron Anders is a regular in the UFC now too. So, I definitely like hearing that, and I definitely agree as well, taking a look at it now as well. So, anything else that we're liking in terms of values, or anything you saw in the prelims that caught your eye as well?
Yeah, the next one I just wanted to look at here was the Luis Pena fight against Kama Worthy. So we talked a little bit about that before. So Worthy, he has 6 losses. He's 15-6. His 6 losses are 5 are by a TKO and 1 are by sub. So my big thing, Pena, 2 of his 8 wins are by knockout. So he doesn't have a ton of power. So I don't think Worthy gets submitted. He's either been knocked out basically, or it's, or he wins. Pena, it's either he either subs him or he wins. It's not generally a knockout. So my thing is, after Worthy's last win, huge win by the way, but I think he got a little bit lucky in that one against Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens again. I think Pena is the way better fighter. He's way more strategic. He has better percentages in his punching and his stand-up. I think Pena wins, but I think it goes over 2.5 rounds based on what I was saying. So Worthy doesn't get submitted, which is the most of Pena's wins. Worthy gets knocked out. Pena doesn't knock people out. So I think Pena wins based on percentages and the way that he's set up his training camp and the way that he's, going to strategically fight like he did last time, after, losing family member, and talking about, finding his dad and all that stuff. A pretty cool story. He's very talented. I think he wins, but I think it's a decision. I would go over the 2.5 rounds for -120. That would be my choice for that.
Yeah, also Pena at decision +187. That looks potential there as well, right? If you're going for that decision, that looks all right. As you said, Worthy, knocked left hook knockout on Devontae Smith last year in the summertime. Let's say 4 times out of 5, that's probably not going to happen. So you would think going into this, the bettors might be a little bit, too much leaning on Worthy, but it seems to be the right type of money there. Penny at -250, Worthy +200. It's looking, pretty much what it should be, in my opinion. I'm actually surprised that there isn't more money coming down on Worthy with that great performance last, but you're exactly right. I think it's because people know about Pena. They know about his technical striking, how long he is, and he's going to be able to keep Worthy at bay with those, those long jabs and kind of teep kicks and stuff like that. So yeah, I know I'm looking at that as well, going to decision. I think we've gone over everything that we need to. This looks to be a pretty interesting card with some great fights, an amazing headliner. So enjoy the fights, all you listeners out there. Hope to see you next week. And yeah, good luck on those bets. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, yeah.